some beautiful tetras in here.
Yeah, they're pretty big.
So the first thing is it's very, very stagnant. Now, how long have you been running this tank for?
6 months.
Yeah, okay, because it's really, really stagnant.
Clogged up at the back.
Oh, it's major. Yeah. So how long since you've given that a clean?
Oh, a few months.
Yeah, right.
I want the gravel sort of gets into the sponge there, so I have to
Yeah, right. And see, I really don't believe in mud with gravel over it.
Yeah.
It just always seems to cause a problem. So you've got a lot of sediment, which some of that sediment looks like it's just some of the mud coming up. So yeah, we definitely want to fix the sediment, and the sediment's probably why your filter's clogging up so fast. So, I mean, from what I'm seeing, it's way too stagnant. Like it's super stagnant. I mean, like if I film those roots, they're hardly even moving. Now, you don't have CO2 or anything on it? No? Yeah, okay. So I'll find out what the water test results are in a second. But when you go to redo the tank, which you wouldn't bother doing now because you said you're getting a new tank anyway, is I would just not be doing this business.
Yeah.
I'd be going for either mud. If you want really good ground cover, then you go for the mud. This tank here has no plants that require mud, because all of your plants that they don't need mud at all. So these are actually, it's only really the HC style plants that you'd bother putting the mud in for. Otherwise they're just too high nutrient. So if you want like a HC base, which you'd need a CO2 for anyway, then that's fine. So if I was you, I'd just scoop all this stuff out when you get the bigger tank. Or sorry, I just wouldn't put that in the bigger tank, and I'd just go for like a fertilizer gravel, not a fertilizer mud, because I'm really only a fan of fertilizer muds for the HC style tanks where there's just really good cover. So what I'm, let's say, significantly worried about right now is that if we disturb up this substrate, there'd be a whole lot of bacteria here that would not have seen oxygen for a long time. And that means it can discharge hydrogen sulfide. So if we disturb this, there is a small possibility that hydrogen sulfide will release, and that can actually kill the fish. Now, I do have some polyfilter in the car, and the polyfilter is very effective at removing the hydrogen sulfide. It's like a poisonous gas that builds up through the bottom. Now, that does take time. So the tank might not be old enough for that to be a problem. So we might be okay. You've got to be really careful with these top plants because they're pretty much choking the light for the rest of the tank. So if you look at where all the top plant is, there's really not much plant growth here. So you've really got to just keep all this duckweed either gone or at an absolute minimum. So the duckweed is a real big problem. The lack of water flow is a real big problem. And I'm not a fan of this business. So let's just we'll discuss how to reset up your new tank. But the only way that you're going to resurrect this tank is basically a complete overhaul, which right now we're just moving it. I mean, you've got some really, really nice fish. So the absolute priority is the fish, and the plants are sort of pretty gonzoed. So now the plants are not yellow, which means there is enough fertilizer for the plants. I would say there's just really, the tank's too stagnant, and I'd say you're not getting enough light penetration. But you've got some really nice fish, and we'll get that polyfilter in the water just in case hydrogen sulfide does release, which it probably won't because the tank's not super old. And then you add, what's this one? A fertilizer. You probably don't need to fertilize this tank at all because you've got heaps of fertilizer. As that gets old and starts to expire, you do want to fertilize. But right now, probably just knowing what your iron level is not a bad idea. But if your plants are going a little bit yellow, that's when you want to fertilize. But your plants are absolutely not going yellow. So do you reckon we can complain about this view, James? Do you you reckon he's got a good view? This is like the best view anyone's even heard of. You get these super fast growing plants, whether it be the duckweed or whether it be the Java moss or whatever. It's really a matter of, on a weekly basis, scooping it out. And it's a disadvantage that you've got to do that, but it's an advantage that it's sucking lots of nutrients and you're removing those nutrients. So it does actually help to export nutrients out of you. What's that bridge over there? That doesn't look recognisable by any means. So what's going on here with his water? So the KH is 6.6, which is a little bit on the high side. I'd rather it be sort of 3 or 4. The general hardness, or GH, is nearly 13, which is okay, but I'd really rather it closer to 8. I'd rather a bit lower. pH is 7.4. I'd really rather it sort of 6, 8 or 7. Phosphate's 0.4, which is slightly higher than I want, but not too bad. There is a tiny bit of ammonia in the water. And the reason why there might be a tiny bit of ammonia in the water is that this tank would definitely be experiencing what's called low redox potential. And because the dissolved oxygen level in here is potentially quite low, because the water's quite stagnant, so there's just a tiny bit of ammonia in the water. Then there's no nitrite, and the nitrate is quite high. And this nitrate could be high if there's been a lack of water changes going on, but also some of these all-in-one water age fertilizers, they're very good, but they can increase your nitrate too. But this is a really cool shot here, looking down through the back, looking at these magical cardinals. Now we've started draining this aquarium. This filter is quite good, but it's really important that this sponge is cleaned on a very regular basis. Otherwise it will reduce the flow and so forth. So that's like way overdue for a clean. You want to open that up and give it a clean every now and then, cleaning it in water from the fish tank, not water from the tap. And then we want to make sure that this outlet is well and truly agitating the surface. And this tank did have a air pump on it. And particularly for a tank like this with lots of plant in it, it's really going to be optimal if the air can run at nighttime or opposing to the lights. So the lights will come on in the daytime and you'll get oxygen generated by the plants, but then the plants will produce CO2 at night. So therefore, if you have an oxygen running at nighttime, it just helps to balance the CO2 level, oxygen level, and definitely just helps to stabilize your pH. You've got tons of snails too. Do you want to get any of them out? So just, get rid of them while we got a chance. Otherwise, you get yourself a loach, and the loach will eat all the snails if you start getting overrun by snails. But the snails are actually quite good for the substrate, because the snails will actually get into the substrate and help to agitate the top of the substrate, but they will eat your plants and cause you all sorts of other trouble. So, and you've actually got heaps of them in there. So maybe getting something like a Pakistani loach or a small clown loach, even if it's just temporary, to get rid of your snails is going to be a relatively good idea. So we've just removed the driftwood structure out of the aquarium, and we did find the marine pure balls hidden in the back, which is quite a good idea. If you can hide these in the back of the aquarium so you can't see them, then they work like a compost heap and they grow lots of parallel nitrifying and denitrifying bacteria, which just helps to increase the capacity of your aquarium. Job, and right out the front of the job, that is our Prime Minister's Lodge, right there. And the Harbour Bridge and Opera House is right behind there. What do you think, bud?
Okay. Good doggy. Gobble, gobble.
And make sure try and see if you can see the Opera House.
I'm the greatest cameraman of this generation.
I think you.
No, you can't see the Opera House.
Alright, go back. You're gonna miss a good bit. Oh, I nearly maybe got a bus there.
Wait, why are we going here?
I don't know.
I've never been in this place.
Well, we are now. Just film up so you can see the Harbour Bridge and shit.
And the Opera House.
Imagine you
barely
just stopped
see
here.
it. I didn't know that. What is it like one? I thought that there was 2 lanes of traffic like that. I thought there was 2 lanes, but no, just 1 way.
The other lane's over there.
Yeah,
Oh, here's the cruise ship.
yeah.
Doesn't look as good as our cruise ship. It doesn't have slippery slides and shit.
It's
Ours
not
was cool the way it
about
slid.
this stuff.
Ours looked better than that one. That one was
Yeah.
more boring.
You guys are fun.
It looks old too, that one. It doesn't look new like our one.
Yeah,
It
it's the
looks
Queen
old.
Elizabeth.
Well, Queen Elizabeth doesn't look as good as ours.
Yeah.
No slippery slips. I can't see any putt-putt off.
It's one for old people like Grandma. It's like one that Grandma would go on. Oh, they're making a new World Trade Center.
Really?
Yeah, look.
Barangaroo.
New World Trade Center.
Okay, I need to put on. Can you turn it off now quickly? Put it on. So this is where a terrorist attack occurred, and Curtis Chang, who works for the New South Wales Police, was killed in a terrorist attack. Terrible, eh, bud? When you're about to move a fish tank, it's very tempting to just not look after it for a while because you figure you're moving it. But what you really want to do is the opposite. If you know you're moving your fish tank where possible, you really want to do some extra services, give the filter an extra clean, and depending on your tank, give your gravel an extra clean, give it an extra water change. And what that does is allow the fish's immune system to be as good as possible before the move, because a move will always create stress on a fish. So the higher the fish's immune system before you move, the better off. There are other things that you can do as well, such as add Vogel to the water. So Vogel is an artificial immune stimulant, which does help in these situations. And I've also put some polyfilter in behind the filter here. And the polyfilter is a good thing as well, because that's going to help adsorb and absorb anything impure out of the water, including any possible hydrogen sulfide out of this sand. So the fish are behaving very nicely. Now, considering the filter is on, it's still very stagnant. I'm almost tempted to play with that extra pump you've got, but that's probably too powerful. So anyway, they're looking good. When you do move fish like this, a couple of tips is in the bottom of any bucket, keep a little bit of water, because sometimes when you take out ornaments, you do find fish that fall out of the ornaments. And when you get a fish during a move like this, if you think it's dead, don't chuck it out of the water yet, because so often I'll have fish that completely play dead and I'll think it's dead, and then it swims around. So fish stressing in a situation like this is not that unusual, so don't go chucking it out unless you're sure it's dead. They're beautiful little guamis, aren't they? There's some really nice fish in here. Cardinal's one of those fish that you just never get sick of watching. Have you seen the ones behind the counter at my shop? The ones at school in